Rain poured mercilessly over the small Midwestern town of Riverdale, drumming against store windows and transforming parking lots into miniature lakes. Inside Glenwood Grocery, fluorescent lights cast a harsh glow over tired faces as evening shoppers hurried to complete their errands before heading home to warmth and comfort. In a world increasingly defined by digital interactions and practiced indifference, genuine moments of human connection have become rare treasures, unexpected intersections where strangers' lives briefly touch, often changing trajectories in ways no algorithm could predict. Sometimes the most profound encounters happen in the most ordinary places, between people who might never have reason to meet otherwise. In the checkout line of Glenwood Grocery, this is how our story begins with Emma Reyes, a 34-year-old single mother whose kind heart had survived despite life's repeated attempts to harden it. With tired eyes and hands roughened by work, she stood waiting her turn, unaware that the next 5 minutes would set in motion events that would transform not just her future, but her understanding of what kindness can yield when offered without expectation. Emma Reyes, 34 years old, was a hospice nurse at Riverdale Community Care Center. Her appearance spoke of someone who prioritized others before herself. Hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, minimal makeup applied during her morning commute, and scrubs partially hidden beneath a weathered rain jacket that had seen better days. Despite the evident exhaustion in her eyes, there remained a warmth that years of witnessing suffering hadn't managed to extinguish. 10 years ago, Emma had been on track for medical school, her undergraduate degree completed with honors and MCAT scores, promising enough to generate interest from several prestigious programs. Her then-boyfriend, Mark, had supported her ambitions with enthusiasm, talking about their future, as if her success would be a shared achievement. Then came the unexpected pregnancy, followed swiftly by Mark's sudden realization that fatherhood wasn't compatible with his life goals. By the time their daughter Lily was born, Emma faced a reality where medical school would have to wait. That temporary pause had stretched into a decade. Emma had adjusted her dreams, finding purpose in hospice nursing while providing stability for Lily, now a bright 9-year-old with her mother's compassionate nature, and a talent for mathematics that made Emma fiercely proud. The small 2-bedroom apartment they shared was modest but homey, decorated with Lily's artwork, and furnished with second-hand pieces Emma had lovingly restored. Now, Emma's days followed a carefully orchestrated routine designed to stretch limited resources as far as possible. She woke at 5:30 a.m. to prepare Lily's lunch and review homework before her shift began at 7. Her workdays were spent providing comfort to the dying, holding hands, adjusting medications, and sometimes simply being present as families navigated grief. After work, she often picked up extra hours teaching certification classes for nursing assistants at the community college. Returning home just in time to help Lily with advanced math problems she increasingly needed to Google to understand. The financial tightrope Emma walked had grown more precarious recently. Last month, her 12-year-old car had required repairs costing nearly a full paycheck. This month, Lily had outgrown her winter boots just as the heating bill had increased. Each unexpected expense meant calculated sacrifices elsewhere: generic brands instead of name brands, library books instead of bookstore purchases, homemade gifts instead of store-bought ones. Emma's refrigerator at home bore a carefully constructed budget, taped to its door, with several entries crossed out and recalculated. Her phone contained multiple banking apps, each monitoring separate accounts where she divided her paycheck with mathematical precision: rent, utilities, Lily's college fund, modest but persistent, and the medical school savings that had dwindled to almost nothing after the car repairs. Despite these challenges, Emma maintained small rituals of generosity. She brought homemade cookies to her hospice patients' families. She volunteered monthly at Lily's school, and each payday she placed $5 in the kindness jar on their kitchen counter, money specifically designated for unexpected opportunities to help others. Yesterday, Emma had emptied the jar, folding the collected bills into her wallet with Lily's solemn oversight. "Remember, Mom," Lily had said with the wisdom of a child raised to understand both scarcity and abundance, "being rich isn't about how much you have, it's about how much you give when you don't have to." Now, standing in line at Glenwood Grocery with her carefully selected items, sale-priced pasta, vegetables approaching their expiration date, and a small chocolate treat for Lily's lunch, Emma mentally calculated her total against the remaining balance in her checking account. Payday was still 2 days away, and the margin for error was thin. As the elderly cashier greeted her with familiar warmth, Emma didn't notice the well-dressed man who stepped into line behind her, nor the subtle way he observed her worn rain jacket and careful consideration of each purchase. The ordinary Thursday evening was about to become anything but ordinary. It was at exactly 6:43 p.m. when everything changed. The fluorescent lights of Glenwood Grocery buzzed overhead, occasionally flickering as the storm outside intensified. Emma stood patiently as the cashier, Martha, scanned her modest selections. They exchanged pleasant small talk about the weather and Martha's grandson's recent baseball victory, a comfortable rhythm born of years of similar interactions in this small community where faces became familiar even without formal introductions. Just as Emma began placing her items in the reusable bag she'd brought, a commotion arose from the next register. A man in his early 50s stood there, his expression a mixture of embarrassment and frustration. Unlike most Glenwood shoppers in their casual attire, he wore a tailored grey suit that, despite being slightly rumpled, was clearly expensive. His cart contained an odd assortment of items, basic groceries alongside cold medicine, tissues, and several containers of chicken soup. "I'm sorry, sir," the cashier was saying loudly enough for nearby customers to hear, "but your card has been declined again. Do you have another form of payment?" The man ran a hand through his silver-streaked hair. "I don't understand. There must be some mistake." His voice carried a slight accent that Emma couldn't quite place, perhaps Eastern European. He patted his pockets, producing a leather wallet that yielded no additional cards. "I'm afraid my other cards are at my hotel. Perhaps I could come back tomorrow." The cashier looked uncomfortable. "Store policy, sir. We can't hold groceries overnight." Emma watched as the man glanced at his items with particular concern at the medicine and soup. "I see," he said quietly. "Perhaps just the medicine then. My assistant is ill at the hotel and The total would be $27.42 for just those items," the cashier informed him. The man checked his wallet again, producing only a $10 bill. "I don't suppose this would be enough." Something in his expression struck Emma. Not entitlement or anger as might be expected from someone in such fine clothes, but genuine concern and a hint of helplessness. She recognized it as the same look she'd seen on family members at the hospice, when they desperately wanted to ease a loved one's suffering, but found themselves unable to do so. Without conscious decision, Emma found herself stepping toward the adjacent register. "Excuse me," she said. "I'd be happy to cover the gentleman's groceries." Both the man and the cashier turned to her with surprise. "That's very kind," the man said, studying her with unexpected intensity. "But I couldn't impose. It's quite a lot." Emma glanced at the register display. $68.17. Nearly half of what remained in her account until payday. The rational part of her brain urged caution, reminded her of the carefully balanced budget, the upcoming bills. But another part, the part she'd nurtured despite life's hardships, made the decision with quiet certainty. "It's not a problem," she said, handing her debit card to the cashier before she could reconsider. "Everyone needs help sometimes." The man watched her with an expression she couldn't quite interpret. "May I at least know your name?" "Emma," she replied simply. "Emma," he repeated, as if committing it to memory. "I'm David. Your kindness is unexpected." As the cashier processed her payment, Emma noticed details about David she hadn't initially observed: the fatigue around his eyes, the way he stood slightly hunched as if carrying an invisible weight. Whatever his story, whatever had led to his card being declined despite his apparent wealth, she sensed he was telling the truth about needing the medicine for someone else. "Is your assistant going to be okay?" she asked as they waited for the transaction to complete. Surprise flickered across his face. "Natalia." "Yes, I believe so. Just a bad cold, but we're far from home, and she has no family here." The cashier handed Emma her receipt. "You're all set. That's real nice what you did." David collected his groceries, then turned to Emma once more. "Thank you again. There aren't many people who would do that for a stranger." Emma smiled, thinking of Lily's words about the kindness jar. "Take care of Natalia. That's thanks enough." As she turned back to complete her own transaction, David hesitated for a moment, seemed about to say something more, then simply nodded and walked toward the exit, disappearing into the rainy evening. Martha, the cashier, shook her head with admiration as she finished bagging Emma's groceries. "You're something else, Emma Reyes. Not many would empty their wallet for a stranger, especially one in a fancy suit like that." Emma shrugged, already wondering if she could stretch the remaining pasta at home for an extra meal. "We're all just people, right? Fancy suits or not." She gathered her bags, unaware that David had paused outside the store, watching her thoughtfully through the rain-streaked windows before pulling out a phone and making a call. 3 days later, Emma's life had returned to its normal rhythm. The encounter at the grocery store had faded into the background, replaced by more immediate concerns: Lily's upcoming science project, a challenging new patient at the hospice, and the perpetual juggling of bills that defined end-of-month finances. Friday morning found Emma at Riverdale Community Care Center, reviewing charts at the nurses' station when the receptionist approached with an unusual expression. "Emma, there's someone here to see you." She lowered her voice. "He's wearing a suit that probably cost more than my car." Puzzled, Emma followed her to the lobby where David from the grocery store stood, looking remarkably different than he had during their previous encounter. Gone was the rumpled appearance and worried expression. Now he stood tall, immaculately dressed in a charcoal suit that even Emma's untrained eye could recognize as exceptionally expensive. Beside him was a woman with a tablet computer, efficiently typing notes as he spoke quietly to her. "Emma," David said, his face brightening when he saw her. "I hoped I might find you here." "David," she replied, surprise evident in her voice. "Is everything okay? How's Natalia?" "Much better, thank you. Your kindness helped more than you know." He dismissed the assistant with a gentle nod, and she retreated to a discreet distance. "Do you have a moment to talk?" Emma glanced at her watch. "I have about 15 minutes before my next patient." David gestured toward a small seating area. Once they were seated, he regarded her with a directness that made Emma slightly uncomfortable. "I haven't been entirely honest with you, Emma," he began. "My card didn't decline by accident the other night." Emma's brow furrowed. "I don't understand." David took a deep breath. "My name is David Corvus. I'm the founder and CEO of Corvus International." The name registered vaguely with Emma. A massive technology corporation frequently in the news, though she didn't follow business developments closely enough to know details. "I've spent the past month traveling to small towns across the country, conducting what you might call a social experiment," he continued. "I deliberately create scenarios where I appear to need help, then observe how people respond." Understanding dawned slowly. "You were testing people? To see if they would help you?" David nodded, having the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "In the past 3 weeks, I've had my card declined in grocery stores in 17 different towns. I've asked for directions while appearing lost. I've dropped my wallet in plain sight on busy sidewalks." He paused, meeting her eyes directly. "Out of dozens of interactions, only 6 people offered genuine assistance without expectation of reward. You were one of them." Emma felt a complex mix of emotions: confusion, a hint of indignation at being unknowingly tested, curiosity about his motives. "Why would you do that? You clearly don't need help." David's expression softened. 5 years ago, I was worth over $10 billion on paper. I had homes in 7 countries and couldn't remember the names of all the people who worked for me. I also had terminal cancer with 6 months to live. Emma's nursing instincts immediately engaged. She studied his face with new awareness. "Experimental treatment in Switzerland saved my life," he continued. "But during those months when I thought I was dying, I realized something disturbing. Despite all my wealth and accomplishments, I couldn't name a single person who would help me simply out of kindness rather than obligation or opportunity. It changed my perspective entirely." He leaned forward slightly. "After my recovery, I established the Corvus Foundation with a single mission: to find and support people who demonstrate extraordinary kindness without expectation of return. People like you, Emma." Emma's discomfort grew. "I didn't do anything extraordinary. Anyone would have helped." David's smile was gentle but knowing. "That's where you're wrong. I have 3 weeks of evidence proving exactly the opposite." David reached into his jacket pocket and produced a business card, which he placed on the table between them. Unlike typical corporate cards, this one was elegant in its simplicity: creamy white with only the Corvus Foundation name, a phone number, and the phrase "recognizing exceptional compassion" embossed in silver. "The Corvus Foundation would like to offer you a grant," he said, his tone shifting to something more formal. The amount is substantial, $250,000 to be used however you see fit. Emma stared at him, certain she had misheard. That's absurd. For buying groceries. Not for buying groceries, David corrected. For being the kind of person who would spend nearly half of what remained in her account to help a stranger when no one was watching. He gestured toward her. My team does thorough research. I know about your daughter Lily. I know about medical school dreams deferred. I know about the budget taped to your refrigerator and the kindness jar on your counter. Emma felt suddenly exposed, vulnerable. You investigated me. That's invasive. Perhaps, David acknowledged, but necessary to ensure the Foundation's resources go to those who truly embody its mission. Emma's mind reeled with the implications of such a sum. Lily's education secured. Medical school no longer an impossible dream. The perpetual financial tightrope walk ended. It seemed too extraordinary to be real. Why me? She asked finally. There must be people who've done far more impressive things than buy soup for a stranger. David's expression grew contemplative. Last year, the Foundation identified a firefighter who ran into a burning building to save a homeless man everyone else had overlooked. The year before, a teacher who donated a kidney to a student's father she barely knew. He paused. But extraordinary compassion isn't only found in dramatic circumstances. Sometimes it's in small decisions, made at great personal cost, when no recognition is expected. The clerk at your grocery store told us you're a regular there, that you often help elderly customers reach items or carry bags despite being clearly exhausted yourself. Emma shifted uncomfortably under this assessment. I still don't understand why you do this. What do you get from it? Restoration of faith, David said simply, in myself and humanity. Despite the surreal nature of the conversation, Emma felt a strange resistance rising within her. The money would solve so many problems, yet something about it felt wrong. As if accepting payment would somehow diminish the pure intention behind her actions at the grocery store. I appreciate the offer, she said carefully, but I can't accept money for basic human decency. That would make it transactional. It wouldn't be right. Rather than disappointment, David's face showed something like satisfaction. That response is precisely why you're the perfect recipient. He leaned forward. The Foundation doesn't reward kindness, Emma. It invests in it. What would you do with medical school training? How many more lives might you impact? How might Lily's future change knowing her mother had the support to pursue her dreams while modeling integrity? Emma fell silent, considering his words. Sleep on it, David suggested, standing. The offer remains open. In the meantime, there's something else that doesn't require your acceptance. He nodded toward the entrance where his assistant waited. Natalia will provide details. And Emma, thank you, not just for the groceries, but for reminding me why I started the Foundation. As David departed, his assistant approached with an envelope. Mr. Corvus asked me to inform you that regardless of your decision about the grant, the Riverdale Community Care Center will be receiving a new endowment for staff development and facility improvements. He also mentioned something about a kindness jar program for local schools. Emma accepted the envelope with trembling hands, watching David's retreating figure disappear through the doors. For the first time in years, possibilities stretched before her, not as distant dreams, but as tangible paths her feet might actually travel. 18 months later, spring sunshine spilled through the windows of an apartment much different from the one Emma had once shared with Lily. Though still modest by many standards, this new home offered something the previous one couldn't: space for dreams to take physical form. In the living room, a dedicated study area housed medical textbooks and a laptop open to online course materials. On the wall hung Emma's acceptance letter to the University of Michigan Medical School, special admission granted to their part-time program for non-traditional students with exceptional life experience. Beside it was a framed check, not the one from the Corvus Foundation, which had eventually been accepted after much deliberation, but Emma's first paycheck from the kindness initiative she now directed at Riverdale Community Care Center between her studies. The program, funded jointly by the Corvus Foundation and local businesses, had transformed hospice care throughout the region, providing comfort items, fulfilling final wishes for patients, and offering emergency support for families facing financial hardship during end-of-life care. What had begun as a small idea had expanded to 3 additional facilities, with plans for statewide implementation the following year. Emma stood in the kitchen, preparing a celebration dinner. Today marked 1 year since she'd begun her medical school journey, a path made possible by the Foundation's support, and a flexible schedule that allowed her to maintain her nursing work and presence in Lily's life. At 10, Lily had blossomed, her mathematical talents now nurtured through special programs, her compassionate nature evidenced by the kindness club she'd started at her school with seed funding from the Corvus Foundation. The doorbell rang and Emma wiped her hands, smiling as she went to answer. David Corvus stood outside, considerably more relaxed than during their first meeting at the hospice. Behind him, Natalia, now his chief operating officer at the Foundation, waited with a smile. "Right on time," Emma said, welcoming them in. "Lily can't wait to show you her science project results. The kindness curriculum increased prosocial behavior in her class by 47%. David laughed, the sound carrying none of the weight it had when they first met. "She's going to outshine us all." As they moved to the dining room, a wall of photos caught David's attention. Images of families at the hospice center, patients surrounded by items from their bucket lists, volunteers at community events. At the center was a simple photograph of a grocery store receipt for $68.17, framed like a priceless artifact. "You kept it," David noted softly. Emma nodded. "To remind me where it started. One small decision that seemed so insignificant at the time." From another room came the sound of Lily chatting animatedly with Natalia about statistical analysis methods for her next project. David turned to Emma, his expression reflective. "When I started this experiment, I was looking to restore my faith in humanity. I never expected it would create an entire movement." Emma smiled, thinking of the thousands of lives now touched by their expanding programs. "That's the thing about kindness," she said simply. "It compounds with interest. Sometimes the most profound changes begin with the smallest choices. A moment of compassion when it would be easier to look away, a hand extended when it would be simpler to keep walking. In the ordinary aisles of a grocery store on a rainy evening, two lives intersected briefly, setting in motion ripples that would eventually touch countless shores. For Emma Reyes and David Corvus, a simple transaction, groceries purchased for a stranger, transformed into something neither could have imagined. A hospice nurse found the path to fulfill her deferred dreams while creating systems of compassion that outlive single acts of kindness. A wealthy man seeking to test humanity's character discovered not just what he sought, but a purpose that gave his considerable resources meaning beyond accumulation. Perhaps the true measure of kindness lies not in grand gestures performed for an audience, but in those quiet decisions made when we believe no one is watching. Choices that reflect who we truly are when recognition and reward are not part of the equation. And you, as you move through your own world today, what small kindness might you offer that could, in ways you may never witness, alter the course of someone's life? The opportunity awaits, perhaps just around the next corner.